Hi, you guys. It's Ozone.
Hello and welcome to Crackcast number 341. I'm Ozone Ocean, and with me today is Tantaree. Hello, Tans.
Hello.
And we have Mr. Baines. Hello, Mr. Baines.
Hello.
You did it, you bastard. But, and a message from Pitface. So I'll just put that in here. A message from Pitface.
Hi, you guys. It's me, Pitface. I'm a little too busy, but I just wanted to say I hope you have a really nice Quackcast, and hello to all my ducks on the duck website. Hi. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye.
Now a real message from Pitface.
Oh.
Hi. For a while.
All right. Hope you
guess.
be on next week, Pit. But we'll see, or the week after.
Full stuff.
Okay.
Don't be lame. And
Enjoy
go
your
do something else.
enjoy your journey to Great Britain.
Yes. And let us know what's supposed to be so great about it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You got it.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
All right.
I gotta ask, Baines, is it balls hot over by you right now? Are you guys getting like the heat wave?
A little bit. It's kind of going back and forth crazily. Yeah, pretty muggy, pretty warm. Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah. Oh, so that's not helping either. Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
it's like 96 degrees.
Oh my God.
I want to go somewhere else. All right, guys.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
It's been a pleasure. Take care, guys. Talk about
You
some
too.
cool stuff.
We will.
Have a good trip. Talk to you soon.
Thank
love
you.
Cold Britain. Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
And we all wish Pitface well. And I think the first Pitface was better. Maybe we'll have her next time instead. The Valley Pit.
Yeah, she's a little more chipper.
Oh yeah, jolly Pit.
More basic.
Basic Pit. Okay. Well, on this Quackcast, we're going to be chatting about objectivity and objectivity. No, not about objectivity at all. We're going to be talking about objectification.
Try to be objective. Oh, I misunderstood too.
Objectification and porn. Is that what we're going to talk about, or different aspects of that? I'm not sure. So yeah, before we get
into the mix, you can, keep listening, guys. There will be porn.
Yes, there will be. Before we get into our multiple porngasms, let's introduce the featured comic. Featured comic was, Mallory Bash. So, take it away, Ozone Ocean, with Mallory Bash. Take it away, me. Okay, I will. Hello, I'm Ozone Ocean, and my feature for the week was Mallory Bash. Mallory Bash is a charming comic about the titular character, a brash, rough around the edges little red-haired girl who gets into adventures and scrapes. She lives alone with her kind-hearted grandfather in the small town of Moonblush, a place inhabited by other equally interesting people. This is a humorous comic with a lot of heart. It only updates sporadically, but it's definitely worth checking out. The art is all digital, highly stylized with an emphasis on cuteness. The first series is in black and white and the second is in full colour. Mallory Bash. It's by David Perry and it's rated E. It's gorgeous. You should really see the full colour. It's such pro-looking work. Beautiful. Lush. Just almost animation quality. That's the way it looks like. I mean, obviously illustration is far better than animation quality, but the look of it reminds you of something that's animated. You've almost get a Studio Ghibli kind of feel almost. although it's far more stylized than that, obviously. It actually reminds me of a little bit of the Little Witch, if you've seen that, the animation. Quite magical and marvelous to look at. I hope you enjoy Mallory Bash. It's very kind-hearted as well. You see some very, very touching moments with little Mallory and her grandfather, and when she talks about her lost parents and the mystery of what happened with them. You know, how did they die? How did they disappear? Although, you know, that's slowly becoming evident as you read through. Anyway, I hope you enjoy Mallory Bash by David Perry, rated E for everyone. And that was our featured comic, Mallory Bash. Okay, so next up we have the music by Mr. Gun Wallace. And Gun Wallace this week has given us the theme to Tomb Busters. Tomb Busters. Baines, you've heard this, haven't you?
Yes, very nice. I love those sliding strings.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Little slide guitar. So very nicely arranged, composed.
Yeah, he's our Jimmy Page, this Gun Wallace. He's a talented guy. So I'm going to introduce it now. What's that, Tom?
I said bravo because I just said bravo.
Bravo.
That's all.
Bravo. So, Tomb Busters. It's a compelling, regal, atmospheric steel guitar country rock. This is a triumphant epic that will swallow you whole and leave you gasping for air. So take it away, Mr. Gun Wallace. And that was Tomb Busters, which is a comic by Stork Studio, rated T. Tomb Busters. So have a read of that and see how the music fits with it. I encourage you. So
I will be doing that because I'm the only one who hasn't been able to play through it. I'll be reading the comic and listening to its thing. You do that as well.
Yes. We all shall. Okay, so now on to the topic. So objectivity is the spark. Oh, not objectivity. Objectification is a totally different bloody thing. What am I talking about? Okay, objectivity is when you're...
I object to that.
Yeah, and there's a different meaning. This bloody English language, these words are totally different, aren't they? Object and object and objectification and objectivity. So objectivity is, of course, when you're trying to look at something from an outside perspective and not put on biases or anything like that. It's a fictional way of viewing stuff, an ideal, a philosophical ideal. That's what objectivity is. You try and achieve it as much as you can by eliminating bias, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about objectification. which is when you remove the humanity from a character until they become more like an object. You objectify them. So rather than, it's usually done by male writers for female characters, and it's a traditional cultural thing more than anything else. It's, people copy the way other people write and they just continue. And it's also a cultural thing where, males don't really consider females on the same status or whatever, and they'll tend to do this. So, there's the old idea of sexual objectification. So your female characters become objects of desire for the male characters or whatever. So it's not a good thing, but sometimes it is okay. But it's contextual. So we'll have a chat about that. What do you guys think about objectification?
Tense.
No.
Tance is waiting for you, Baines.
I'm not bright enough, really. I'm here to learn. That's all.
All right. Well, I've got quite a lot that I can talk about objectification, apparently. All right.
Okay. Objectification is like people think immediately of the sex element, but I don't think that is the only way you can do it.
Yeah.
It's you could say that objectification is to stereotype in general, and to cut a person's personality so that it will only fit in a very specific box and mute every other aspect, thus turning this person into let's say a representation of a group, which of course when something is a representation, when something is a symbol, when something is not a character, it's an object, so you objectify.
Yes.
I mean, that's how I consider it and how I approach it. It's not just the sex, and it's not just for women. It can happen to and about pretty much everything that can have a personality.
Yeah, it can happen to any character. It's what I say in my news post at least was that it's commonly done with female characters, but yes, you can do it like racial stereotyping. Any time you turn a character into one dimension, then you're sort of objectifying a character via that one single dimension. So, I think we've had various news posts on this kind of thing, but Baines has talked about reflection characters, which are a very useful thing for, deepening your story or showing, different aspects of some kind of happening, but
sort of alternatives to the protagonist, if you will, similarities or contrasts, or sort of alternatives, or showing stakes of losing, in whatever context the theme of your story is.
Exactly. People can use that as an excuse to have one-dimensional characters, playing those kind of roles sometimes, which is... would you say that sometimes they do that, Vance? Those secondary roles can be filled by unfulfilled characters.
Yeah, I just don't. I'm not sure if that's the same thing as objectification.
Well,
having a one-dimensional character or a stock character or a cliche character. I don't know if that's the same thing as. I mean, to call that objectification, I don't know if that's technically right, but that sort of feels not right.
Yeah.
I don't mean not right. It just means it feels not correct.
It's not right.
I would agree. Agree. Sorry.
We should stamp it out. It's bad.
I would agree to that. I mean, one dimension doesn't mean that there is no personality reflected in this single dimension. It's just not developed very much. What I was saying before, I think, how to put it better, I think it's just that if you overdevelop, let's say, like a hydrocephaly, let's say, if you overdevelop a single trait and make it a trait to the point where it is obnoxiously dominant, like maybe, I mean, that I think would have imply objectification over other things.
Yeah.
Like when you have objectified, what is there? Huge boobs, long hair, huge lower cheeks, I suppose. So that would be objectification, because she is really, everything else about her mostly is invisible. What you see is the three elements that are of interest, which is the over-sexualization of the female concept rather than, so.
Yeah. All right. Well, oh god, I'm getting some weird voice stuff happening. All right. So I'll read my news post. I think maybe that will give us a bit of crystallization. So I say this is often a thing with female characters, but what is objectification? Objectification is when you rob a character of the things that make them human and turn them into something closer to an object. One common view is that that I feel is in error is when a character is objectified by the way they're depicted. So why is that wrong? Well, a character, like a human, is not defined solely by their wardrobe or the physical attributes, though, as Tance, as you, of course, have said, you can tell many things about the character by, the way they're dressed or, the way they're drawn, so you can. But you can't just reduce objectification just to physical appearance. It is other things. So if you're just focusing on physical appearance, you might be doing the objectification yourself. So there's the question, is the viewer being made to focus on a character's outfit and physical attributes and therefore be encouraged to sexually objectify a character? Or is it a case of the viewer not being able to look beyond those things? So you've got that little bit of a frisson there. Sometimes, often, not often, but yeah, there are instances where you are encouraged to sexually objectify a character, and sometimes it's simply because you yourself cannot look beyond those particular traits. So in order to truly objectify a character, and this is all, obviously I'm not being objective here, this is all my opinion. In order to truly objectify a character, you deny their humanity. So you make them less human than other characters. So you've got a contextual thing happening here. This can happen with any type of character by anyone, but in my experience it's mainly done to female characters when written by male writers. It seems to be an unfortunate cultural trait. When you're aware of it, you'll notice it in novels and movies and comics everywhere. Female characters are often lusted after, loved, they help, they nurture, but they have no agency of their own. They're just defined by those sort of traits. It becomes ineffably lame. Their role is often one-dimensional and consists of supporting male characters or creating plot points or tension for them to work with, needing to be rescued, twisting an ankle, that kind of thing. Those are old things. It's also prevalent in modern pop culture, say Big Bang Theory is a great example. Penny and the rest of the female cast are secondary to the male characters. Almost everything they do enables them, while the females are never allowed the same level of well-rounded humanity that the males are. Fundamentally, they are objects of admiration. The entire premise of the show is based on the very simple concept that undersexed, childish nerds will acquire traits of respectable adult masculinity only when they manage to possess a girlfriend. The women in that show are basically strap-ons.
That was the one statement I found I didn't really understand. Wouldn't they be fleshlights?
Well, I'm saying they're prosthetic
How are they
penises.
strap-ons?
They're prosthetic.
Yeah, so how does
penises
that
for the
scan?
men.
It's not a gay show.
No,
not possessing.
But the men don't have penises of their own. They're not masculine enough. So,
I see what you're saying.
yeah, it's like for the
I still object to it, but I see what you're saying.
like gay men would have a beard,
I thought.
which is a
Okay, so that's a different mental image, because the mental image I had was entirely serious. Like, you said that women are strap-ons. So, actually what I envisioned for nerds. So,
what? You must draw this interpretation that you had, Tans. This sounds very entertaining.
I don't think that I have the skill to illustrate something like that. So, feel free.
I go on to write that. Where am I? Okay. You could say that the example in The Big Bang Theory, the women are performing the role of reflection characters. But the context is important here when most of the one-dimensional reflection characters are female, while the main characters are all male. You have a problem. Context is important, though. Always remember that these things are relative. Maybe all the characters are one-dimensional. You know, maybe you've objectified all of them. Maybe objectification is a joke. Maybe there's something else. Say Marilyn Monroe and her imitators, Madonna, Kylie Minogue, Lady Gaga, are good examples of this. They owe their careers to an image of a sexually objectified woman that they've turned around and they've owned it. So they capitalize on the sexual power that image gave them instead of being ruled by it. So you remember Madonna with her whole like a virgin and all that kind of thing, and then we go back to Marilyn Monroe with her boop boop we do kind of stuff, or whatever it is. Happy birthday, Mr. President. So they create those images and they own them instead of being objectified by them, which is a totally fantastic.
I don't know if that is absolutely accurate, in the sense that, yeah, they do create them, and of course they fly on that image and the objectification and everything. But I think that to at least some extent it also owns them. Like, they cannot really stray from that and display something else with impunity. And I'm saying that because I remember that we had this actress over here that was super, super big. She was even called the national actress. And she imitated a lot. She had really copied all sorts of mannerisms and styles from Marilyn Monroe. Yeah. And maybe some from Ava Gardner. Maybe. Anyway, she was a little tacky, in my opinion. Anyway, however, she was extremely popular as this pussycat woman with the curves and the blonde hair,
the bimbo archetype.
And what she was saying, when she tried to move away from that and try her acting chops, ancient Greek tragedy, for example, or to play in something that was a little bit darker and grittier, and she was basically all but banned. She received such backlash to that, the meow thing. So I do think that, they create this character and they create this persona that is basically one single trait rather than a person. But then it's very hard to break out of it. It's like typecasting yourself. And then that's the only thing that you can do. And get, the audience to accept you and like you and stuff like that.
Yeah, that has certainly been true in for a lot of people. Though I think, say, Madonna and Kylie Minogue, Lady Gaga have sort of gone past it. Though they've managed to open up that and turn it around more than, say, Betty Page or I think Marilyn Monroe did it a little bit, but not really. She had started to do it, not so much in her media persona, but in her own life, certainly. She used her power to help people and do things. But yeah, you're right that some people can become a prisoner of that sort of thing. But times are different now, though. So we have...
yeah, definitely.
Sure, people like that.
Maybe, however, maybe though... the actual the type of typecasting, like the type of objectification that you cannot break away from, is changing rather than the actual thing, the concept. Like maybe now you can move from being super objectified bombshell stuff to being something else, but maybe there are other things that you can't.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something, but I'm drawing a blank. I do have this feeling, this concept, though, that, oh, okay. So maybe it's not a specific formula, like in descriptions, but in concepts. Like you have to be raunchy.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of things, but they all have to be very edgy and provocative, for example. Or you have to be weird. Do what you like, but it has to be weird in some way.
Okay.
Gratuitously, maybe I'd say. Like maybe it just has shifted that it controls people.
Yeah.
I mean, objectification, creating an object, and a symbol, a concept that is devoid of the humanity.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we are still really good at dehumanizing each other and dehumanizing people in general.
Foreign people often get
evil old white males. How is that not an objectification?
Yeah.
Just to take the other,
Yeah, that can be true. I mean, you notice that with the poor just to go on with that, we've got the Milady guys, the neckbeards.
What is that?
The
Milady
fedoras,
okay.
Which was a really useful and hilarious stereotype, and I love making fun of it. I love that thing. But then you realize that, hang on, people are getting they're crystallizing it a bit too much, and they're actually turning these people into these evil pariahs, and they're making it into too big a thing. Then they're forgetting the humanity involved here, that they're actual people. The poor old neckbeard, fatty fedoras, and with their black trench coats and stuff like that. Now they're being robbed of all humanity, and you're going a bit too far with the the whole stereotype thing. They're just turned into an object, rather than a human. So you're right, Tans, that it shifts onto other things, and even when it's a negative thing like that, it's still not such a good thing to do that to people, I think. Perhaps. Not to defend some people that are really awful, because we made fun of them rightly because they were awful.
No, I mean, there's so much awfulness to go around. You don't need objectification. Fine, in abundance. So.
That's true. What else have I written here? Well, there are also many instances where objectification can actually be good, to take the other tact, which it's always helpful to do when you're writing something. It's you say something's really bad, and then you think, well, hang on, is it always bad? Maybe it's not. So, and I've said, for example, point of view story, where your point of view is from a single perspective. The character can't be expected to see everyone as a fully realized human. they might see their importance or use in terms of how they relate to themselves. So you've got like, especially like you've watched the American Psycho, haven't you, Tans? So that character doesn't see everyone as human.
What was that? You broke up?
Mm-hmm.
You've seen American Psycho with
Oh, yeah. Everyone is objectified there in the sense through the point of view of the characters. And that's definitely more than okay. Because if the character objectifies, then you can very much underline the personality by contrast of how the character objectifies it wrongly. So yeah, for sure. Like that iconic scene with the business cards is one of the best, I think, examples of objectification without having boobs on screen. So because they are all reduced to this little square paper, like their entire existence and significance is reduced to that. That's brilliant. Like that entire scene is brilliant.
Just the typeface.
But the movie itself, the movie itself though doesn't objectify.
Yeah.
It's the characters that do it to each other. So.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, which is what I'm saying. Yeah, we get too caught up with the visuals, whereas it's really the essence of objectifying is robbing all humanity from a character in the way they act and the way they think. What else have I written here? Okay, yeah. An adult sex story is another example of where objectification is appropriate. In such stories, the sex is often the focus, not the characterization. So in those kind of things, you've got the action or the thing about sex in this case. I suppose sex is its own thing. You really can't relate that to everything else. That is the focus. So if you're doing a sex comic or something like that... Oh my God, what's that noise? Say if you're doing
Sorry, I muted. Yeah, sorry.
That's all right. Say if you're doing a sex comic or something like that, or watching something that's about sex, all the characters tend to be objectified in that because what they're doing is the important thing. The people are just avatars for your own lusts, I suppose, or your own fantasies. That's what they're meant to be, and that's how it works. In those kind of specific adult things. Not all adult entertainment is about objectification, but in specific ones, that's how it is, and that's how it works. So that's a very good example of... So there you go, that's your porn.
I mean, this is why I don't know if I agree that objectification... And I'm not trying to proselytize. I'm not trying to sell this point of view or something like that. But going down to the sort of animal instinct at the core of all of us, what we're biologically designed to be, and strictly talking about that animal self. I'm not saying anything about how to behave or how to treat people or whatever.
Right.
Treat people well. Treat people like people. But a woman is an object to a man on an instinctive sexual level. She's a physical object.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. And a man is an object to a woman in that context, definitely.
Yeah, and it made a different way. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you are in the headspace of carnal satisfaction, let's say, or procreation, or I don't know, the moon is just right. Then you will not be interested in someone's in someone's aspirations or personal tastes or their backstory. You are going to just look and see if what you see before your eyes appeals for use, because you are going to use these people. So yes, of course.
Precisely.
And that is more visual, say for a man, the instinctive reptile brain of a man looking at a woman, it's more of a visual thing. For looking for fertility or for health or for whatever kind of shape. For women, it might be slightly. It's both, but I think.
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
I assure you that if things are just right or you are in the right mood, the only thing that you're going to look for in a man is fertility things. So let's say, it's mutual.
But that for a male, it's always there. It's not the only thing that matters, but it's not. It has nothing to do with the moon. It's always there. It's at our core,
What do you mean by that, Baines?
I mean,
yeah, but what do you mean by that?
I mean, the physical object that a woman is essential to how, because those instinctive sensations bubble up to our emotional selves and to our logical selves. It drives us, That's why humanity is still here. A woman, I'm not a woman, but so I feel a little weird saying it, but I don't believe that it's exactly the same thing for a woman. I mean, a woman enjoys a good-looking dude, of course, and a sexually attractive dude and all that kind of stuff. But a dude. But I think the instinctive drivers are slightly different for a woman than for a man. That's why our porn is different. That's why we have porn. It appeals to those instincts. And that's why it's so powerful.
Wait. I have to know that. Is there porn that is specifically tailored to women?
Apparently there is. Though it's not my main interest because not being female, but apparently there.
Twilight.
No.
That's not porn.
No, I know.
There are female directors. I think Annie Sprinkle is one, but there are noted female directors who do, tailor things to their own particular interest as women, and they film the kind of porn that, turns them on.
Is it popular, though? Is it popular with women? To the level of, say, erotic literature is popular with women?
It has a following, but I really couldn't say. I really couldn't say. Let's just say that that they have enough of a following that they make money off it. So,
right.
I think porn that appeals to women. From what I have heard about it, or seen in documentaries and had these. Well, from what I gathered, anyway, it's more about the seduction of leading up to the scene. And so instead of the action being very, full on and physical, it's more about seducing the characters, seducing the performers into the performance.
So more of a story. That is the thing, right?
Sometimes it is,
right.
But not all the time. But say in a sexual scene, it's more about being more sensual.
Yeah.
Rather than being more just physical, which is what, the majority of porn is, which is, just plain physical. So it's more sensual. So you have more stroking and kissing and all that kind of thing. And, the lead up into the physical, which,
right.
Have,
That's well put. That's my understanding too, is like that is more just on the pure instinct level has that universal appeal. There are differences to what has practically a universal appeal to men versus a universal appeal to women. Is the way we get aroused is different.
I don't know if that's universal different. It could be individually different. Oh, go on, Tance. I don't mean to talk over you.
No. Because I'm just thinking. I hadn't actually given it this much thought, to be honest. So I haven't actually sat down to really think about it. But I think there are certain that separate the genders on how they get aroused. But Like, for example, theoretically at least, I recall from sociology and stuff that women are supposed to be more aroused from social attributes because they are supposed to take care of finding a mate that can support offspring and blah blah.
Yeah.
However,
But that's not
be
culture.
entirely honest.
Okay.
That's DNA.
It depends on your take. Not necessarily, because that would be you would pick the mate that is physically more likely to protect the young, rather than richer, for example, or something.
Yeah. So exactly. Yeah. The way it sort of takes shape, the specifics of it is more cultural and more geographic. But the principle, like the underlying
that's the theory that. Yeah, but to speak from personal experience, but also from experience that I have seen people, students come to my office with. I have a lot of teenagers, so hormones everywhere.
So you can see this in action very clearly.
Yeah. It really works more or less in the same way. I mean, there definitely are differences, but not differences that would differentiate to the point that you get the men are from Mars, women are from Venus
Yes.
vibe. And women will respond to someone that is genetically good for procreation, displays traits of strength and virility, and especially as far as body goes, and face comes second, which surprises me a lot when I see it.
You want physically robust children, right? You want your children to live.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I do think that women do get the same level of, to go back to the objectification thing, they would objectify pretty much in the same manner. Maybe they would focus on different parts of the body, like they wouldn't focus on the chest because there is little to see there. But just below the chest, at the abs territory and everything, let's see who we have with a beer cut, and let's steer away from that one for a while. At least we're drunk. That sort of thing. So, and that means that you pick by trait and not by personality. So that is physical trait, like physical stereotype parameter, let's say that.
Yeah.
That would be objectification. Women definitely objectify.
Oh, sure.
As much as men.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Maybe they can, show it a little more elegantly, but they do objectify. So,
as they should.
Yeah.
But why do you think that female writers don't objectify characters as much? They do. I've seen it happen, but it's not. It doesn't become problematic the way it does with male writers.
I think because women would take care, at least because I think that's socialization more than genetics.
Yeah.
I think that a woman will want context, especially when to engage in something more than 2 or 3 minutes of va-va-voom. If we're talking about something more than that, a woman needs context.
Yeah.
And a woman needs more communication with the object. So she needs the object to feel interactive. So I would say a reason for women to occupy themselves with that is because they fulfill the fantasy that women have, which is to have a man pay attention to them as personalities as well as bodies. Because if you have a man that pays attention only to your brain, quote unquote, and doesn't pay attention to your body, then you still don't like it.
You don't win either.
This is a little insight, guys, for all of you out there. So it's just like they like a balance that would offer, I suppose, I estimate that if you do get a partner like that, that can also engage and connect on more elements and aspects than just the physical, then you can nest, quote unquote, again with this person. They will help raising the children. They will think ahead a little bit. They will be more reliable rather than someone that acts basically like a bit slightly more sentient inseminator. So
Slightly sentient inseminator. I like that. I was just trying to think. Okay, to take it back to comics.
Sentience is just a bonus for us. I'm just kidding.
To take it back to comics.
Nice, but it's not crucial.
There are say adult comics that do their share of objectification. The ones that I always think are the best are the ones with more of a story. Now these ones make it more interesting. They're not objectifying too much. They're objectifying less rather than more. Those are the better porn comics because they get you engaged in what's happening. They seduce you as a reader into the fantasy of the sexual scene or whatever, and make it believable, make it interesting, make it give it stakes. Mm-hmm. So I think possibly less objectification is good for those kind of things. I mean, at least for a comic version. Say if you're doing a porn film, then it maybe swings the other way, depending on the kind of the thing that it's aimed at, I suppose. Isn't that weird?
I would think that, despite what I sort of said about the instinct thing, but I agree with that. Having a context, having a character, a personality, and an actual story and a reason things are going on, is way more compelling. Porn is, it's just, there's just kind of nothing there other than just the complete, bare bones visual
mechanics.
The mechanics, yeah, exactly. Well said. Yeah.
Yes.
It's not that it doesn't really appeal, even on a sort of sexual level, I guess. Some kind of context is really does. It's way more effective.
Yeah, it becomes like a how-to video almost.
Yeah.
How to fix your phone. Now, all right. So we've porn. If we're talking about the way it started out as a visual medium, as a film medium, say, because obviously it started out as etchings and things like that, cave paintings or whatever, but carvings of objects, But say, come up and see my etchings, young lady. Which actually people did do. They did. That saying has reality. But say, starting out as a film thing, it was basically watching a woman undress, watching, and they would have little stories though. They'd only last a minute or something, because that's all these early forms of film could do, and they'd have a little scene where two characters would meet, and it would all be the subtitles would come up at the title screen. The action would stop, and then you'd have just like in black and white movies. And, the woman would be undressing and be caught at a swimming hole or something like that. Or, the chambermaid would be doing this or that. Or they'd have a classic kind of arousing scene. And that's the beginning of porn. So it would have a story, but it would be a very, very simple kind of thing, and it would be a classic kind of trope. So after that would gradually evolve into more complex things when we got to proper silent films, when, it lasts a little bit longer. But there was always story in that, and action was secondary. And then you go up to the 1960s and things are more complicated, and into the 1970s, then they have elaborate stories and basically Hollywood film production budgets. So they're like the same level as a D movie. Maybe better than that. Some of them are, quite well done with elaborate stories and sexual scenes that, do happen, but the characters are not really objectified in that. I believe the objectification really only started to become a thing when video came into the mix. So home video, people are just fast forwarding over story to get to the action. And that's not because it's on video, that's because they're in their homes. So it used to be...
They're able to, yeah.
In these things would happen in a cinema. So that's where people would go and see them. Some people would be able to get them for home viewing, but mostly be in a cinema. But when you're in a home, then you're only watching it for that mechanical action. Basically, masturbation is what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. They want to get to that scene because they want to be stimulated in order to satisfy their needs. So, but that influenced the production of porn. The budgets were no longer there because it was just reduced to, the physical acts. So you don't need the elaborate story, you don't need the good actors. Then you've got the, mainly physical stuff, and it becomes objectified, not because that's necessarily what people want, but it's because of the mechanics of the way people are viewing it. The video's fast forwarding and people are viewing it in private, basically. So it's for a different market. And that's what it was made to appeal to. And that's how it has become, and that's influenced everything, comics and all other kind of visual media. But now audiences have become, I don't know, maybe a bit more sophisticated, or maybe wanting more. Maybe they're bored by that just plainly physical, boring stuff. And we do have less objectified porn now. We do have stories coming back into it. There are, more advanced kind of things. I just thought that was an interesting kind of history and way of thinking about it. It's not just about our lusts or what we want. It's also about the context in which we're viewing it and the mechanics, the object on which we're viewing it and things like that. But our
now
taste...
that
I'll go on to
no, I was going to say that description and everything makes me think of this new method of exposition that Game of Thrones has supposedly introduced into visual narrative genres and forms, which is, I think, I'm trying to remember because I should have Googled it, but right now I am too lazy to do it. The term, I think, is sexposition.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. Where you sort of...
Which is basically...
I got you.
Yeah, you have a sex scene.
Sorry.
You have a sex scene. And instead of it just being there just for its sake, things happen, like the plot advances during the sex scene. And often things that would be normally boring are now more interesting because they happen at the backdrop of some people getting down. So,
That's interesting.
which I suppose is it's a good method maybe, but I'm not sure how good it is and for what kind of context or type of information would you use it? Like how many people talk while they are actually, going at it at a rhythm. So
Right.
You'd be surprised.
okay.
There's a hell of a lot of politics and world actions have been driven by bedroom scenes, in history. So it's definitely...
Yeah, but not during. It's the before and after that happens. Like, kings talked after or before, you know.
Depends how well the people know each other, how familiar they are. I think the more familiar they are, the more chat can go on during. So,
True, that's also true.
yeah, so scenes where it's so if you were going to do that in a comic scene or a movie scene, you'd have to have the characters having a little bit more familiarity with each other than, say, a one-off engagement to make that real. Not that you have to make everything real, but to make it more believable, I suppose, to make your audience buy into the reality. You have to establish that familiarity. What do you reckon, Baines?
Yeah, I would say so. You at least want to know their name.
Unless the entire purpose of the scene is for the character to learn the other's name.
Yeah.
You see? You got to get that info somehow.
Gotta get that info somehow. You prepared to go all the way, Baines? Are you prepared? Yeah, it's even I think they've used that in James Bond. Not that the character learns too much about other ones, but you do have some plot advancing during love scenes in James Bond historically. I think from memory.
I'm not sure. I don't know those movies well enough. You know, there's always an element of a Bond girl in there, and often she turns out to be one of the villains or something, or she ends up dying.
She usually tries to kill him post-coitus.
Right.
If she's the villain.
The Black Widow.
Yeah. Or basically, what was her name? And she was one of the most fun ones.
Pussy Galore.
Something on a top.
Oh,
her name was on a top.
Yes. That's a fantastic name. It's terrible.
I love that one. I would want her to survive and have her own spin-off.
You're right.
Like the Adventures of
Definitely. Yeah, the Bond girls need their own spins off. Or at least on a top anyway. It'd be better than the James Bond one. I'd watch it. Oh, God.
I think people would watch it. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't
No.
try.
Times are changing, though. Perhaps. We'll get Tance to write up a treatment for us with lots of sexploitation. No, sexposition.
No, thank you. No.
How good are you at objectification?
I can be good objectifying people. It's just not very challenging. So
you're right.
I become a snob when I talk about objectifying people. I also have a craving for Starbucks and a scarf.
All right. You're getting a bit cold. Well, we're about an hour now. So I think we've reached some very interesting avenues. We've gone down some interesting little rabbit holes in this particular Quackcast. So I hope it's good for people to listen to. All right, thank you guys for being part of Quackcast number 341.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And let's wish Pete Face, who is probably not going to listen up to here now because she's so busy, a good trip to London.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where she's gonna be for a while.
Have a happy journey, Pits. I hope she has a good journey in the UK. My God, that's such a huge thing. Our listeners, I hope you know, Pitt is going to the UK to become to study at a university there and become a proper archaeologist. Well, she is a proper archaeologist, but she's even more
Become a princess.
Princess, what? Yes, exactly. The Princess Royal, that's what she will become. They'll crown her.
Exactly.
And they won't have to worry about the ascension of Charles anymore. Finally. Finally, the UK has got its act together. All right.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye, Pits.
Bye-bye.
Bye.